Well, now the New York Times profile of white nationalist Tony Hovater began as a journalist's attempt to understand the mind of a white extremist. The article spoke about the Nazi sympathizer's wedding registry, his love of the TV show Seinfeld, and his Midwestern manners. It gave him the opportunity to offer his distinction between being a white nationalist and a white supremacist. But readers were not as kind. They were swift and loud in condemning the profile, saying they went too far in normalizing him. Social media was flooded with comments from readers like this. I'm both shocked and disgusted by this article. Attempting to normalize white supremacist groups should never have been printed. Now, my buddy Soledad O'Brien tweeted, would be interesting if instead of normalizing Nazis, if the New York Times actually assessed them through the eyes of those they hate, blacks and Jews. She then went on to list a number of other instances in American history where normal whites showed up to lynchings, brought their children, picnicked after church just to see a black body hanging from a tree. Now, Mark Lacey issued this response, editor of the New York Times. Quote, our reporter and his editors agonized over the tone and content of the article. The point of the story was not to normalize anything, but to describe the degree to which hate and extremism have become far more normal in American life than many of us want to think. We described Mr. Hovater as a bigot, a Nazi sympathizer who posted images on Facebook of a Nazi-like America full of happy white people and swastikas everywhere. We understand that some readers wanted more pushback, and we hear that loud and clear. Lacey went on to express regret for the degree to which the piece offended so many readers. Actress Deborah Messing actually canceled her subscription to the New York Times as a result of this article. So let's go to our panel here. See, this is again, this is the mistake. And this is where clueless liberal white people are nuts. The problem in America is that they think, oh, we don't have colored water fountains. We don't have overt racism. So this thing is just so far in our past without realizing that there are people who are, yes, normal. The reality is, the reason I had Richard Spencer on this show
was not to normalize him.
No.
Right.
Was to show people
How crazy he was, yeah.
This is racism in the 21st century. In a tweed jacket, in a V-neck sweater. He went to a private school in Dallas. When David Duke ran for office, I remember the stories. Klansmen turned in their robes for blue suits. There are individuals who hold these views. There are individuals who have enormous resources in America, who run hedge funds, who are billionaires, who hold white supremacist views. Now, they're not going to go out yelling, nigga, 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 nigga. Right. Oh, but they're going to make sure that they are pushing policies that suppress black people. That is what these folks at the Times seem not to understand.
Right. And Roland, when the article was, when the idea was thought of, his intention, the author's intention was, I am going to dive deep into the mind to understand how someone can be so evil, how someone can turn from white supremacist to white nationalist, how someone can turn from a Nazi. He said in his article, and he has since then released several articles after that saying he missed the mark. So he kept going back to interview him to get more questions so he can get his answer. He said he still feels like he fell short. If you fell short of the article, you should have never published it, printed it, and sent it out to America, period.
But here's what is weird to me, Michael. This notion that, well, I just don't understand how somebody who loves Seinfeld and who grew up in the Midwest could just be this way. The Klan was founded in Indiana. Is that not in the Midwest? Right. The NAACP was founded based upon a race riot in Springfield, Illinois. That's the Midwest.
Yeah.
These folks somehow act as if that, and see, this I think is America's problem. We have said that, oh yeah, the Midwest, that's America. For so long, when Johnny Carson was on television, the whole deal was, how does it play in Peoria, the Midwest? In radio business, in radio and television, they literally taught folks, talk like you're from the Midwest. Lose your Southern dialect or your Eastern dialect, talk like the Midwest. America somehow has this belief that the Midwest part of the country is just devoid of racism and bigotry, but Dr. King said, I saw more bigotry in Cicero, Illinois than I did in Birmingham.
I mean, look, that's, Roland, what bothers me about these milquetoast liberals is that they have this idea that the human condition isn't as complex, where people who aren't quote-unquote normal can't hold these types of views. And what I wonder is at the New York, why didn't anyone on the editorial staff say, you know, that you didn't do enough before they decided to publish that? Why? I mean, who dropped the ball?
Because they're the
that's
same.
what I don't understand.
Because they're sitting in their white enclaves. This is how they think. Oh, that's just those backward people. I mean, I just don't understand. But I mean, 2000 debate took place. I'll never forget George W. Bush, Al Gore, and the issue of race came up. And George W. Bush said the key to ending racism is education. And I'm sitting at my home in the Dallas area, and I want to throw a shoe at the TV by saying, "Fool, there are racist PhDs."
Absolutely. They're everywhere. I mean, let's just talk. In the last segment, we were talking about Moore, for example, running for Senate. And he was a judge on the Supreme Court. They're judges. They're policemen. They're teachers. They are everywhere. And the problem with what's going on with this particular argument in terms of white liberalism, you're exactly right. Here's the thing. At the base notion is, first of all, they center whiteness. That is their normalcy, right? I think the best sort of reaction to this was Soledad's reaction. Why is it that the center has to be whiteness, and you're sitting here trying to figure out how could this person be evil? It's because your normalization of whiteness is that white has to equal good. They don't go into these depths to try to portray the real lives of dead black people who have been killed unjustly. No, but they go there and they try to humanize this evil white supremacist because it is completely diametrically opposed to white supremacy to think that whiteness can be and is evil.
But this is the problem that we face in this country. The reason white privilege does not take hold because it's the word privilege. Because in America, people go, oh, no, I'm not privileged. I don't have money. When we think of privilege, we think in terms of aristocrats, people who are driving Rolls Royces and private jets, and that's what we think. So people go, oh, that's not me. They don't think of those terms. I also think about when you begin to unpack this thing and examine this thing, begin to delve into these issues here, you have folks who want to live in denial. When Richard Spencer had the rally at Texas A&M, and I went down there, and I was one of the folks certainly opposing him speaking there. So I run into a guy, and it was so packed that the cops were not letting anybody else in. So a guy comes up, and he says, well, I heard about I wanted to hear what he had to say. It's okay. Now, middle-aged white guy, bomber jacket on, and so we start talking. He starts telling me how he was 20 years in the Air Force, and then he starts talking about how they were something, and then a particular position, and how they were promoting black folks who were unqualified. He starts going into this thing. Now you saw the dude. Now if you saw the guy, you would instantly go, ooh, bigot, racist. And so he's talking, and he's like, well, some of the things this guy says, really makes some sense. And so he's talking. I'm sitting there talking to him, and I said, you do know I've been on some jobs with some grossly unqualified white people. I said, in fact, we're here in Bryan College Station. I said, do you realize that I interned the TV station here, and the white news director made it clear he would not hire me for the part-time sports weekend anchoring job because he said he would never hire another black male? And the guy goes, well, I said, no. I said, but my point is, if you saw this guy, he wasn't waving a Confederate flag, but he was holding white supremacist thoughts and views. And I'm sure he watched normal television shows and was a normal guy. And this is the mistake these folks keep making, as if you have to wear a sign that says bigot, racist. No, it's the views and the thoughts that you hold, and then how that manifests itself in public policy, in everyday life.
And I think, I mean, Roland, I think they could have accomplished their goal, to your point, Doc, by talking to disenfranchised people about their racial experiences with quote-unquote normal white people. They could have easily have done that.
Yes,
but instead,
brilliant.
They decided to focus on this guy. And, you know, I just have a problem with that with the New York Times. I really, really do. And simply issuing an apology for me just isn't enough.
Again, and so I keep trying to tell y'all, do not be confused about what is happening. This is not just about Donald Trump. This is not just about the 2018 midterm election. This is not just about 2020. What is happening right now in America is all about the fact that by 2044, no one group will be a majority in America. What is happening in this country is white fear. Fear of losing power, fear of losing control, fear of dominating culture. That is what is driving all of this. And if you want to understand this, I need you to go listen to the March 25th, 1965 speech that Dr. King gave after the Selma March. It took place in Montgomery. And in that particular speech, he talked about what took place after the Civil War. He talked about poor whites aligning with African Americans when it came to wages and voting. And then he said powerful interests in the South were afraid of this coalition. And what he said was, what they then did was they took that particular power and they said no. They said they took mass media to drive a wedge between poor whites and African Americans. That's what led to the Great Compromise of 1876. That's what led to, of course, the Great Compromise of 1877. After the 1876 election, that's what led to Jim Crow. He said it did not exist before that point, and it was all about the issue of driving whiteness. Understand that's what's at play here.
Weekdays on TV One.
I will never lie to you.
Oh my God.
Roland Martin.
He doesn't want to talk to us. He wants to ignore us.
Uncensored.
Hell no. That ain't gonna cut it, boo.
Unapologetic.
No, that is fundamentally false. You are wrong.
Unfiltered.
He wants an America where we all look alike. He ain't talking about black people.
Unrelenting.
You better go work out, because you got a fight on your hands.
NewsOne Now with Roland Martin. Weekdays at 7 a.m. on TV One.